Today's guest exudes positivity in all she does, but it wasn't always that way. Her victory story comes from 14 plus years of dealing with mental health issues and having to overcome so many crippling and debilitating lows in order to succeed at living a happy life. Natalie Hawkins is a 28-year-old from Pembrokeshire in West Wales. She's an avid runner and is slowly getting back into the sport after experiencing an injury that sidelined her for a good 6 months. Her hobbies include walking, yoga, and exercise, and she is fascinated by the process of self-development and practices gratitude regularly. She loves the challenge of finding the positive and good in a situation, even during tough circumstances. She is also the host of Not Another Runner podcast, which was shortlisted in the 2020 UK Running Awards. The podcast is aimed to encourage and motivate others in getting up and getting going, despite the level of fitness and experience, because you never regret going, but you always regret not going. I had the privilege to chat with her a while back on her podcast, and I just knew I wanted to get her on mine. I'm excited to have her with us today as she shares one of her struggle victory stories and the lessons she learned through it. I am pretty confident that you will enjoy this chat as much as I do. Well, hey, Nat, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to catch up again.
Yes, me too. It's been a few months, and in that few months, it's been crazy. The
Yeah,
world
it
has
has.
changed in a different way, and a lot
Yeah.
of things have changed since we chatted last. So it's kind of fun to be able to catch up. And you being in the United Kingdom, you probably have similar experiences, but some different experiences as well. But will you just share a little bit about who you are for our audience so that they can get to know you?
Okay, yeah. So I'm Natalie, or Nats, and I am 28. I am Welsh, so I live in Wales, in West Wales, and I'm a runner. I'm also a run leader, but not yet put to good use because I became injured just after certifying as a run leader. So wasn't running, wasn't able to. And then, of course, we went into lockdown just as I was gaining some fitness and walking and running. Recently was able to run again, did my first mile in April and managed to get up to 5 miles carefully with run walks. But again, taking a few steps backwards now with the injury, as is progress in life, not linear ever. And I'm the podcast host for Not Another Runner, as you were interviewed on. And that was established from setting up my own running profile over on Instagram, where I set it up just to remain motivated while I was training for London Marathon 2019. And I also work full-time alongside the podcast. So I work in civil service. So between working full-time, getting my exercise in, and also hosting the podcast and everything on Instagram, it is quite busy.
Yeah,
Always busy.
always a full day. You probably haven't felt quarantined at all.
Not at all. No, definitely not.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, when I was in eighth grade, somewhere in my eighth grade, I got a chance to go to Europe on a trip, and I did England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And I have to tell you, Wales was my favorite. And I'd
Was
always wanna
it?
go back. Yes, it was gorgeous. And I think we were in some mines and different things, and we got some,
Yeah.
and it was just so fun. So someday I will get back there.
Yes. And when you do, you'll have to let me know and I'll have to come meet you.
Yes, we'll have to go on a
Yeah,
run.
that'd be great. Yes.
We'll both maybe be back in shape.
Yes, let's hope so.
I can understand the agony that you have gone through in those months off and trying to get back to it, because as a lot of my audience knows, I had the same issues. Just different
Mhm.
injury, but off for 6 months, and it's a hard thing to get back into, but
Yeah.
especially when it's something that you love. And
Mhm.
I would love to hear just a little bit, because I think how you got into running is just a fantastic story in itself. Before we dive into your struggle victory story of the London Marathon, I want to know how you became a runner.
Okay, so it's a funny story, actually. Well, I think it's funny. So, do you know what? I never liked running. I never liked it. And when I was younger and in school, I was very much overweight. So my fitness was awful. I was on the hockey and netball team, so did do a little bit of sport, but I was still overweight. So decided to lose some weight. Me and my mum joined the Curves gym, the women's only gym. So lost, I think it was 3.5 stone when I was 15, and regained a lot of fitness, but still did not like running. And over the years, with a lot of mental health struggles, I came to understand that exercise was going to be my best friend. So when I was back, I wasn't in too bad of a place in 2017, but I still wasn't my best self. So I had taken up smoking after a few years living in Valencia because I wasn't very well and had a very, very a low dip with my mental health. So yeah, I took up smoking because it was my only way to cope with everything else going on around me, and put on a lot of weight. So 2017, I decided I'd give up smoking for Lent, and take up a healthy habit, and that was running. So as soon as I did my first 5 kilometers on that day, I absolutely fell in love with it. And I did. I managed to run 5 kilometers, no problem. I did set off a bit too fast, and before I knew it, I was training for a half marathon, which was such an accomplishment for that year, because for all of that Lent, I did give up smoking. I didn't succumb to it at all, and continued to not smoke. And yeah, just fell in love with running. And prior to that, I had signed up to many races before in attempt to overcome my struggles with my mental health condition, and could never really get going. It was just too difficult. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't able to. I had no one there really like motivating me on to do it, so to speak. And I didn't fight hard enough. So many times I signed up for a race, even just a small 5 kilometer for charity, and just couldn't get myself to do it. So it took me, got to be, I think it's 5 years until like 2017. So it took me that long, so many times signed up to a race. Like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get really healthy. I'm going to be well, and I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to overcome this, and I just couldn't do it. So yeah, 2017 was a big year. Haven't looked back.
That's really cool. And the fact that it took you 5 years, the persistence that you had to have in order to just keep going and to keep pushing to pursue that. I mean, so many of us, when we get into a struggle, or especially with our mental health, because I've been there, I understand that downward spiral. It's easier to just stay there and to not get the help that we need, and to kind of push ourselves out of that. And you seem to do that. And what I think is interesting is you never went back to smoking. So is there any time, are there any times where you feel that struggle coming back, or was it
Yes.
just one and done, and you didn't have to think back?
Oh, I definitely did. And although I'm not a smoker, there have been times where I have fallen back to doing that, but only normally when I'm not being very well, physically, mentally, and I'm not running. As soon as running is taken out of the equation, it's almost like my purpose is gone, because my good self isn't there. So it's a bit like you don't, or at least I, at the time when I did do that, you don't have the same care. You're a bit like, you're almost willing to neglect yourself, because that element that was keeping you up, keeping you well, is no longer there. So you don't have that purpose or that drive to continue, and to abstain from other things that will make you feel low in yourself. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, as far as running, running is like a great medicine for you. Is there anything that you can pinpoint for why that is?
Oh my god, there's so many.
Sorry.
Yeah, so like I ask it on the podcast for each guest to say what their why I run is. So like their why, like what makes them put their trainers on every time they go out. And like I do share it on Instagram. I need to do it more consistently. My reasons for why I run, because I honestly think there is an infinite reason, like as to why I run. It's not what, I can't surmise it into one phrase, because what running has brought me in my life is just incredible. I can't even put it into enough words. I don't think a podcast is ever going to be long enough for me to be able to say what it has done to me in my life. But I will do very best to give you a brief explanation. So, I mean, for me, it has given me a whole new lease of life. Not only did it allow me to give up smoking and become healthier, I was able to become fitter. It meant I had more energy to be with friends and to enjoy activities with my niece at the time and their nephews. I was more productive, more proactive. I lost weight. I was able to wean off medication, which took me 5 years, I think, and I'm now medication free for the longest period of my life since starting medication in 2011. So I no longer have to control my mental health condition with medication. I control it through my own coping mechanisms and exercise. So that's a huge one. And it's opened my world to so much more. So it makes me a more grateful and positive person. It makes me a better person. It makes me aspire to be more, to achieve more, and to continue even when I am struggling. And it makes me appreciate the life I've been given, everything that surrounds me, my family, just everything. I just can't even like put it into words how much it has done for me. And it's also allowed me to meet new people, um, have and form great friendships, and be a part of a club, a part of a community. And again, then starting the profile over on Instagram. That's another big thing. I would never have done that if I didn't have running in my life, and if I wasn't aspiring to an event or to achieve something. And that profile obviously then opened so many more doors. I met people. I was asked to go on a podcast, and then I set up my own, and I've met so many people through that, and it's all because of that one step of going for a run.
I love that. And I love that you kind of fell into the podcast. It wasn't
Yeah,
something you were aspiring for. It wasn't something
yeah.
you thought of for years. It was something that when you were on that podcast, the podcaster kind of inspired you to do it, didn't they?
Yes, he did. Yeah. So, do you know what? I didn't even know it was a dream of mine. It made sense afterwards. I mean, I've been listening to podcasts since 2011. I'm an absolute podcast geek. I listen every day, whether I'm cleaning, cooking, going to bed. I don't sleep without a podcast on. When I'm getting ready for work in the morning, it's like my go-to for everything. It's a bit like a Bible. I'll open up like, what do I want to listen to today? What do I want to take, or what do I want to learn? So yeah, I didn't actually realize, and I think that's probably because it seemed too big of a thing. Like how would I even go about that? Like little me, Natalie, working and living in West Wales. How would I even start my own? So had I not met Tom Bell virtually online through Instagram, then I wouldn't have had the push to go and start my own. I think I would have found and discovered it eventually, because the seed had already been planted from another podcast who, Matt Chittim, who does the Ramblin' Runner. He was saying about the platform he uses and how easy it was. So I did think to myself, that's a good idea, but never really would have run with it had I not had that encouragement from Tom Bell, who was a highly motivated, inspirational, just an amazing bloke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you started your Instagram without any purpose behind it, or
Mhm.
other than to motivate yourself.
Yeah.
And you had named it "Not Another Runner." So
Yeah.
is that where the inspiration came for the actual podcast itself too?
Yeah. So I knew there was going to be something behind it. So when I set one up, it's quite funny actually. I was saying this to a friend the other day. I was quite actually dumbfounded. I set it up anonymously. So I went to the extreme of disconnecting my Instagram and Facebook and my contacts list on my iPhone, so that no friends, no family could find it, because I wanted to do something for me and not have anyone that I knew follow as I found my feet. I knew that I wanted to do something. I had a vision, but I didn't quite understand what it was. So I knew it wasn't just going to be a profile to document my journey. I knew that I needed to meet people, and I knew that I would build something. I just couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. So it kind of just developed naturally, although I knew that there was something going to be there. And that's why I think I took 3 days to think of a name before I even set it up, which sounds really crazy now. There's so many runners on Instagram. The Instagram running community is something quite unique and special, and you can lead yourself down a rabbit hole. Um, So yeah, there's so many runners and so many handles and usernames. I was like, well, that's taken, that's taken. What am I even gonna be? So yeah, it took me 3 days before I even came up with a name and set one up. And I think it was just a little bit comedy, a bit like, oh, not another runner, because there were so many other runners. And that's how that came about. And then obviously the podcast was a natural an add-on from the profile.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Now, as far as setting up that Not Another Runner Instagram, that fell into you training for the London Marathon, correct?
Mhm.
So let's
Yes.
talk a little bit. I'm excited to dive into this and hear your story because I'm like, gosh, I've never had a race like that, and if I had, maybe I would quit. I don't know. So just share a little bit about the story itself, and let's dive in.
Okay, so London Marathon. So it was my first marathon actually, and got a ballot place. I was one of the lucky ones. I used to remember the odds because I posted about it before, but your odds are very slim in getting a ballot place. It was my second entry, so absolutely ecstatic. And I was in really, really great shape. I was in awesome fitness. I'd trained hard. I trained 6 months. I'm a little bit like, if I have a goal, I will absolutely work hard towards it. Otherwise, there's just no point in setting it as a goal. Um, so I'm a little bit type A personality when it comes to stuff like that. So I put my all into it. I absolutely trained hard, and I was foam rolling, I was stretching, I was strength training, I was fueling, I was doing everything by the book. And I even had a coach as well, and gained so much fitness. So I was ready and rearing to go on the day and hoping for around a 4 hour mark. I didn't really know what I was able to achieve because it was first marathon. I don't think you should go into it um, naively. Although I knew I could run that, you just don't know on the day. And also, you really don't know because you've never done that distance. I'd done up to 22 miles, so I knew I was okay and ready for it. I wasn't nervous, which is really odd. And well, the day just didn't go as planned. I basically picked up a bug, and from mile one, I was really uncomfortable. I had a really bad stomach ache and I couldn't shift it. I was fine running, and I was running relatively easy, making sure that I wasn't running too fast, even though I could have done. I couldn't drink water because my stomach was so painful that it was so bloated. Um, so basically, I think I got to mile 14 without any water, dying of thirst, but I knew I just couldn't because of the pain. And I knew at that point that I needed to slow down and that I was going to have to walk because of the pain. Something did not feel right. And I can't believe I managed to run the 14 miles, to be honest with you. And it was a little bit after that I had to pull myself off because I felt so nauseous. And I thought, oh, this is not good. And two lovely ladies came over and they tried to help me. They gave me some of their cup of tea, which had sugar in it to give me a bit of a boost. Gave me a Jaffa cake, which I reluctantly ate half of, and in a little to-go pack with 3 in them. So I ran off with it, or jogged, or plodded. Um, and again, I was just not in a good place. So had to pull myself off probably a 0.2 of a mile later, and was violently sick. And it was awful. It was so embarrassing. I think I left my dignity at the side of that race line. Lots of people walking past, just like looking at me like, "Oh, is she all right?" So it was a bit of a walk, jog, cry, and sick fest after that. I think I was actually physically sick probably 5 times, like violently, and all the while still had no fuel, which normally on a long run like that I would have had at least 2 or 3 gels by then. So it involved 3 medic stops. Um, one of which was about 40 minutes long. I had to have 2 hydration sachets because of how much I'd been sick and not being able to take water on. Finally, had the ability to drink a little bit of water, felt a bit better, but I was freezing cold by this point because obviously my body had cooled down after 40 minutes of doing nothing. So I had a nice foil blanket on me, ready to go back onto the road, and escorted by a police lady. There was a lot of crying because I was at one point on a pavement like, this is gone, like, this is my dream gone, I can't finish. And the race marshal at the side was like, do you need to finish? And I was like, I can't. I'd raised so much money for a local charity. I felt like had I have finished, I would have been an absolute fraud because I'd raised like, I think it was £1,600. So I was like, there's just absolutely no way I can stop. I'm gonna have to run another marathon if that's the case. I'm not gonna be able to after this experience. I was even sick on a police lady's shoes at one point in a bus stop outside of the race. She was really nice about it though, bless her. So yeah, I carried on walking with my foil blanket. I'd been given like my stats because they'd taken some sort of stats somewhere in my pocket. And then, oh yes, that's it, because they'd written out everything. And because of the pain I was describing in my stomach and I think on my back, one of the medics was a bit concerned that it could have been cardiac related because it can sometimes manifest itself in stomach issues. So they said, look, if you get any problems with your left arm or get any pins and needles, then you really need to pull yourself off and stop. So I don't know whether that planted a seed in my head, but I think it was probably half a mile later, I had pins and needles in my left hand and it was like going into my arm. I think that might have been just because of being cooled down and shock and everything else. But I didn't want to take any risks. So I was like, well, it's not going away. The next medic stop wasn't too far away. So I pulled in like I'm driving. So I stopped at the medic stop and basically they had to give me an ECG just in case. And as soon as those stats came back okay, then I was like, right, okay, can I carry on now? Because, I'm really near the finish and I need to get this done. And my poor family must have been like, where is she? I'd nearly run out of battery as well. So I came out and I think this was at like mile 21.5, no, 20, must have been 23.5. I think it wasn't long left by this point. So managed to run the last 3 miles okay, like relatively okay. It was painful for the first mile, but the last 2 was actually really good. Like those hydration sachets, they were brilliant. And I wasn't sick again, which was yeah, very fortunate. Especially I wouldn't have wanted to be sick on the mall coming down the finish line. And I saw my family right near the end, so that was a nice little boost just to keep me going. And the funny thing was, because of all my stops and the walking of being sick, when I was coming towards the end, I was surrounded by a lot of people who were struggling, a lot of injuries. There was one girl had no shoes on, and there was another girl who was literally dragging her leg. You could see that the adductors had gone. Her hips were not in a good shape. I mean, I was like, there's a video of me at the end and I'm actually like running like with a smile on my face because I'd walked a lot of it, my legs were fine. But I definitely, there were quite a few dark places and I was crying and I thought to myself, I used to want to run an ultra marathon. There is no way I can do that because of how sick I felt. Ultra runners, they say about the sickness that they can have. I just thought, no, I can't do that. But yeah, managed to finish. 6 hours 20.
Oh man. And what's the cutoff? What was the cutoff for the race? Is it like
I don't know. I think it's like 8 hours, London. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I might be wrong. I think maybe it's 7 hours.
It's got to be at least 7 for the London.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think in 2020 they were going to extend it because a lot of the backpack runners were quite offended because they were sweeping everything up behind them. I mean, I didn't experience any of that, but yeah, it was definitely a sparse finish line with 6 hours 20. Yeah, not many people around. But do you know what? Like finishing that race, I've never been so happy. Number one, because I could just sit down. And I did it. And yeah, I just couldn't believe I did it because I was so close to not doing it. I had to ring my boyfriend at the time and I said, I'm so poorly, like I can't do this. And in the 2.5, 3 years that we were together, I did a lot of training runs. All my long runs were on my own. So 20, 22, 21 with like workouts placed in the middle. Like I mean, tough workouts. I've never, ever had to ring him or anyone for assistance on any run ever, even with like stomach issues. So he knew this is not good because she just doesn't ever do this.
Right. And now when the stomach issues started right away in the morning, so you were starting with them and you got halfway, a little more than halfway till you really felt it. But what was
Yeah.
going through your mind in those miles that you were starting in?
I just thought, oh, like, why does this have to happen today? I mean, I suffer a lot in my stomach anyway, so I just thought it was one of my normal stomach aches, and it definitely wasn't. I think it was something I must have eaten the day before, or perhaps even just picking up a bug. When you go to a city, you're just a little bit more susceptible when you're traveling, especially away from home. And it was quite a stressful week in the lead up as well. I don't think that would have helped. A lot of lack of sleep. So I think maybe my body was under a lot of stress, and I might just have been naturally more susceptible to picking something up. But I just thought, oh, what are the odds of like not feeling well? Um, it's funny because my stepdad was at home; he wasn't able to come and watch, and he managed to record me at the start line. And he was like, "I've never seen a runner that happy on their first marathon day." Because I was on the screen, he managed to video me, and I'm just there in my club vest, like literally on my own, not talking to anyone, like massive smile on my face because it was a dream come true running London. It meant so much to me to be able to do that race.
Right.
So yeah,
And London being your first marathon, that's
yeah,
super cool and cool that you got.
yeah.
When you started feeling it getting worse and worse, and probably starting to feel like you wanted to quit, what would kind of reel you in? I know you talked about the fact that you were on a charity team, so doing the charity that probably helped. But what were some
Mhm.
other things that you either told yourself, or how did you manage to push through and just say, "Nope, I'm going to do it"? Was it pure adrenaline? Was it something else?
I don't know whether it was because it meant so much. I think me and you chatted about this before about and your marathon as well is the visualization. I must have done that like subconsciously in my sleep. I think I ate, slept, and breathed marathon. And do you know what's really funny is that London Marathon was such a big dream. I really don't know why, because I could have done any marathon, um, and I'm not even that compelled to run it again now that I've done it. But I just wanted London to be my first marathon, so um, I think I had put so much um, hope and belief in that I was going to do it. I remember being on holiday when the ballot results came out, and this was just after a half marathon that I'd done. And I'd messaged my mum, messaged home to say, "Look, mum, London ballot is coming out this week. Can you please check the post for me?" Um, and she wasn't at home, and I think she messaged me saying, "There's something's come from London." And I'm like, "Well, can you open it?" She goes, "Oh, well, I've just gone out." And I'm like, "Are you joking?" Like, and I couldn't sign in and check the result. But I was like, "Are you joking? I need to know." Like you're telling me that you've seen that the magazine has arrived and you can't tell me if it's a yes or a no. So I'm sat on the beach and I've got no signal, but I turn my phone back on to get signal. And she'd sent me a photo and it said, "You're in the ballot." And it was weird because that morning I downloaded a book on my Kindle, and it was um running smarter or something, running how to something about running a marathon, because in my head I was already visualizing at that point before the magazine came. But it's just funny that I downloaded that book, Running a Marathon Smartly, and finding out on that same day that I was in. It was just too many stars aligning for me to be able to do it. So I think when I was struggling on the day, it had already meant so much to me that there wasn't a way I couldn't have finished. And I was raising money so it was a local charity that I'd chosen. I didn't have to raise money because of having the ballot entry, but they're called the Sandy Bear Bereavement Charity. So they assist young children through bereavement or through serious health and life conditions. And they actually helped me and my sister when I was younger, when I lost my brother. So it was quite a big reason, and I wanted to do them proud, and I didn't want to let my family down. And I could never have lived with saying I didn't finish it, but thanks for the money for the charity. I was actually cursing my mum in that race, thinking, I can't believe that I've agreed to raise money. Because initially, it's quite hard when you're a runner and you love running, and you don't take much motivating to get out the door. When you ask for a sponsorship, it's really hard. You feel like you're not able to, because it is a passion and it is a hobby. So it's like, why would I sponsor you? Because you love running and it's easy to you. But obviously, running a marathon is not easy. And I felt, yes, okay, I can raise money for a marathon. So yeah, the charity meant a great deal to me, and I really wanted to do them proud. And it was great being able to give them that much needed bit of sponsorship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's neat.
Mm.
It's so cool that you could run for them. And I've done one sponsorship race, and it was a really great experience to
Mm.
be able to give back
Yeah,
doing something that I love, right? And so
yeah,
that's really neat. I think as runners, I would say do it, try it once at least to give back and see what it's like to race for someone or something outside of ourselves. Um,
yes,
and that's cool that you had that kind of pull, because who knows what would have happened if you didn't have that pull. Maybe it would have been enough for you to be like, it's just my dream. So I can give up on, because we give up on ourselves way easier than we give up on other people.
yeah, that's true.
So if we have something else that we're working toward, or that's why it's easy to help other people, because we won't give up on them as easily as we can tell ourselves and talk ourselves out of things all day long.
Yes.
So in the moments, I mean, 6 hours and 20 minutes, a long time to have self reflection. I'm sure that you learned a few things along the way. So what are some of the takeaways that you had in that experience?
Oh, that one thing I did say and share after was um, that I'm a lot more resilient than I thought I was.
Mm.
Um, because it was a close call. Like I was so poorly at one point during that race, and I think it's quite similar to life and my life. When I compare it, it's just to keep going and not to give up. I know it sounds cliche, but it's so true. I think if you just keep taking one step at a time, it gets easier, or at least um, the overcoming of an obstacle or event or a struggle is more within reach, and that light is at the end of the tunnel if you just keep going, which is definitely something I have had to teach myself over however many years. And like you said earlier, it's so much easier to stay down than it is to actually keep going. It is so hard when you're struggling or suffering. It's so hard to keep going, but it is so necessary to be able to um, overcome those struggles and obstacles in order to achieve anything in life. So I think just keep going. I know it sounds very simple, but it's true. And I think that is what I was doing. I was walking and I was crying and I was just like one step in front of the other. Like, and I just remember saying to myself, just don't be sick, don't be sick. And there were a few moments where I could not do it discreetly. There was one tunnel and there was nowhere where I could escape. There were barricades and people next to them, and I just had to just do my business.
Yeah, you just got to keep going.
Just had to do it.
Sometimes it's good to have those like blinders or barriers in our way so that we only have that path and we have to keep
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Actually, yeah.
or keep going. So
Yeah.
a little push to get us to be like, okay, now I can do it. I've gotten this
Yeah.
far. I can go this far, and seeing those little milestones. In a
Hmm.
normal marathon race, I think of it as, okay, I only have a 10K left, or now I only have two 5Ks, or I have a 5K. And it's easy
Yeah.
to break it down like that. I know in your circumstance, it probably wasn't as easy to see it that way because you're in so much pain and agony
Yeah.
and whatnot. So when you cross the finish line, what went through your head? What was the most immediate thing that went through your head? Do you remember?
I think it was, oh my God, I just did that. Like, how on earth did I do that? Where's my family? I need a hug. And I was sat on like, it took a while for them because they watched me, like, I think it was at mile 24. They had quite a far way to get to the finish line, to the meeting point because of the closures in the roads. So I was sat for a great while on the pavement, just sat there with my kit bag and my phone, trying to turn it on. Um, and then they came round, and my sister, bless her heart, she managed to capture that photo of them like walking towards me, and I'm sat on the pavement and my smile just says it all. I was so happy. It was just, yes, my dream has come true. I've run London now. I've run a marathon, and I worked hard to get that medal and to get that finish. So yeah, it was just, yeah, it was absolute joy, and I was on cloud nine. I didn't feel poorly by this point. I didn't eat all day. I think it was 8 o'clock I managed to eat something, bearing in mind I'd had my breakfast about 8 o'clock. because I just didn't feel right. Um, so yeah, and I was fine by the evening. It was really weird. Like I wasn't sick again. So yeah, it was just total happiness,
That's awesome.
elated.
Right, right. It was just the day. And that's the thing about racing, even, or life. We just don't know what that day is going to be. We
Hmm.
can train for it and we can prepare for it. Like it sounds like
Yeah.
you were really well prepared. You
Hmm.
had your fueling in check, you had your long runs done, you trained
Hmm.
really hard, and you were ready and ready as ready can be. But
Yeah.
on that day, you never know how you're going
Hmm.
to feel, how the weather's going to be, none of that stuff. The only things that we can control is what we do with the situation, like our own
Hmm.
attitude and our actions, really, right? I think we talked about that on your podcast, but
Yeah.
and I love that you persevered and you had that resilience factor and said, well, I can control my attitude and I can control what I do with this.
Hmm.
And no one would have thought anything bad about you stepping out of the race. No one would have said, well, why would you do that? They would have probably said, oh, I would have done the same thing. Or I'm so glad you didn't finish. Like they would have been kind of empathizing with you, where now you finished and now you kind of are that excuse remover saying, if I can do this, you can do it too. Not
Hmm.
meaning in a race, but in a trial. If I can
Hmm.
overcome, you can too.
Yeah.
Get so
Yeah. And I think, there were some dark, like, thoughts afterwards because I felt cheated from my experience, but I they were very fleeting because I that's only when your mind is playing tricks on you, because instantly I'm like, I've always said this, that I am more proud of that finish and doing that marathon in that 6 hours 20 and what I overcame that day than I would have been had I got my goal race and just ticked off the miles nicely as per my race plan and what I wanted to achieve. So much more proud. And I joked to someone, well, next marathon is obviously going to be, how I don't think it'll top it, but it's going to be pretty easy to top the time. I
yeah, you'll
think.
have PR for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, 6 hours and 20 minutes for what you went through is a great feat in itself. I mean, that is a
Yeah.
great time. Just all the walking and all the stopping and,
Mhm.
being in the medical tent and all those things. I mean, those all attributed to that time. And
Yeah.
it's amazing that you did it in 6 hours
Mhm.
and 20 minutes, really. So, as
Yeah.
far as marathons go, that was one of my questions I was thinking about was after you're finished, did you think about the next one? Did you think I'll never do this again? Or did
Yes.
factor,
I
maybe.
absolutely thought about another one. Yeah, I couldn't wait. Yeah, which is great. My mum was just like, "Oh, please don't." She bless her. She worried so much on that day because I was so poorly. She she went through a lot of stress. Um, yeah, I did. Do you know what was really funny though? I'd I was obviously in such good shape. My legs were, I think I'd put in all the miles that I needed to. Um, that I really didn't ache that much after that marathon. I didn't really feel it. But I think that was a lot to do with the walk-in stops. But having said that, though I didn't ache initially after it, I struggled for months after that event. And I think I had to really say to myself, your body's just been through something massive, and perhaps you just need a bit of downtime, because every run was a struggle, and it was really quite upsetting actually, because I hadn't had that race experience, and I'd parted ways with that was fine. I managed to rationalize that, but the fact that even a 3 mile run was a struggle was really sad, because there was nothing wrong with me. I had no injury. I just couldn't run properly for so long afterwards, and I've really found it hard to identify myself as a runner. Like, I knew I was a runner, I just wasn't the runner I was before, and I found that quite difficult. But I know now the reason why. It was absolutely because of that experience. My body needed to come back from it. It'd been through a traumatic experience and it hadn't had time to rest and recuperate properly. So it just needed a timeout. And I was going through a lot of emotional stress at the time as well. And it is definitely true that stress can really impact our mind and our bodies in such profound ways that we just don't even know. It's quite It's quite a big thing, and I think if you are or you do go through any stressful periods in life, or stressful events, it's really, really important to just take it a little bit easier. Um, and if that means slowing down in a lot of aspects, then that's what you've got to do. Because lo and behold, then I came, um, with injury struck in September, which wasn't long after London and the struggles of my running over the summer.
Okay. Yeah, so that was really near each other. So time
Yeah,
you had London, you had your downtime and struggling to get back to
hmm,
running, and then the injury came. And
yeah.
as far as the injury, it was just something that kind of developed, wasn't it? Or what did you know exactly when it happened?
Yeah, definitely did develop. It was something that I'd noticed before, and it's quite ironic. One of my friends said, "Well, no, it isn't ironic. It shows that you're careful as a runner." My injury isn't running related. That is like, I don't know whether that's ironic or not, because my injury stopped me from running, but it wasn't caused by running. It's
Right.
like, really? I just woke up one day with a really, really bad neck. It was jammed. I could not move it. I couldn't even move it 1 degree like that. I'd have to, if I was talking to someone to my right, I'd have to turn around and like face them. I was in so much pain. I could not turn. And even like to move my eyes, like my eyeballs, like even that like would move my neck a little bit, and that would be painful. So I spent a lot of money with the chiropractor and trying to, get it right. And it did help somewhat, but it just wasn't going away. Initially, I was running through it because I'd had something similar before, which had disappeared as quickly as it developed. I just thought it was normal. So I'd be running in club, and I'd have a friend next to me who would be like my wing mirror, checking the roads either side because I couldn't turn my head. Um, so when I started having funny turns with it and having migraines, and there was one time where the migraine was so bad I lost my speech and I couldn't read properly. So I knew it wasn't normal, it wasn't right, because it happened again. And then it was so painful. I thought, well, I'm just going to stop running for a little bit. So yeah, I saw the chiropractor and seen GP. No one could really tell me what the thing or the issue was, but I do think it was a case of several trapped nerves, and just a locked neck. I think it was from stress, months of stress, and probably running through stress. It's funny how much stress can actually have an impact on our body physically. And it wasn't until I was listening to a podcast a few months later, after enduring this pain for so long. I mean, the pain was so bad, I couldn't even walk for, I think it was 2 months. Pain, I couldn't walk. I couldn't even do yoga, which is, I could do no exercise. So I'm surprised I managed to keep myself sane as much as I did. But I was listening to this podcast, and it was John Amaral, and he's actually on episode 5 of the Goop Lab with Gwyneth Paltrow, and he's like a healing. I can't remember what his title is exactly, but he was saying about these experiences that these people had had and how he helped them through it, and that the stress was what caused their body to physically react. And one story was of a man, and his neck had locked because of this emotional and relationship stress and something else. And it just kind of like a light bulb moment. I was like, oh, yeah, like this is because I've had months and months of like massive stress. Like my body's just gone like that, because you naturally do. You tense up, don't you, when you're stressed?
Oh,
And I
absolutely.
wasn't. I wasn't at all relaxing. And working an 8-hour desk job with a computer, and then hours on top doing my podcast at a laptop, always on my mobile. It was the stress and repetitive strain, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Huh.
Hmm.
And you're still kind of overcoming that. I know
Yeah.
you said a mile in, right? You've done a mile, or have you done a 5K?
I did. So I did a mile, and then I did 2, and then I did 3, and then I managed to get up to 5.
Okay.
And then in between, what I would do, like it's been a long, long process. It's been a lot of walking, and there was 2 months of walk jogging. So I wouldn't be able to jog more than, I think it was 2 minutes at one point, but managed to get it up and up and up. Um, so yeah, it's been going really, really well. Been very careful. My warm ups include at least like half a mile to a mile walk before any run. And then lo and behold, I think it was 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, I managed to click my neck again, and I felt a ping, and it was really painful, and I couldn't bend down or like put the washing, put my plates and stuff away. I was in so much pain. So for I think I haven't run properly now for a long while. I did one the other day. I did a mile walk, 2 miles walk rather, and 2 miles of 30-second jogging, 1 minute walking because I just didn't want to set myself back even more. So I was being really cautious again.
Yeah, I get that. And you know what? I feel like sometimes with an injury, it almost tries to keep peeking its head back.
Mhm.
I felt that with my ankle. My ankle actually
Yeah.
felt worse in the past month than it's felt in a long time. And it's like, man, it's been a year and a half.
Mm.
Come on,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
things that we still have to persevere through and figure out how to work with, because
Mm.
I think we can keep doing what we love, but we have to learn how to work with the other things as they're healing because we want it to heal.
Mhm.
And that's the hard part. And so it's good that you're taking it one stride at a time and figuring out what can I do, what can't I do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
balancing that walking and running and knowing that you're still a runner and
Yes,
that can't be
absolutely.
taken away from us. So,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah, I
think,
mean, if we
oh yeah, what you can,
I was just saying, we've got forever to run. That's what I keep telling myself, and it's definitely tested my patience. That's for sure. And so many people I've known, so many runners who've been injured and get really, really low. I'm just really fortunate that I've managed to cope with it quite okay. I mean, it's been what was it now? 9 months nearly. Is it 9 months? September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. Yeah, 8 months coming up to nine. Yeah, I'm really shocked considering I had 2 months where I couldn't exercise at all. Now normally if I went 2 days without exercise, I would be struggling with my mental health. So considering I've been able to manage that all while um I moved house before Christmas, so I had to yeah, that was a whole other that was all going on whilst the injury was surfacing. So having that and lots of other life changes have occurred. And I think when I look back, I think, whoa, I've gone through a lot in this last year. So I think because I'm just so grateful that I can move and that I can walk, that's where I've managed to cope. Because I am so blessed that I'm able to walk. You know, we should never, um, you know, take that for granted because so many can't, and or at least others can't. And so even if I am walking 3 miles with my music, I'm still very fortunate to be able to do that, and that is just a great hobby of mine to be able to do. So yes, maybe injured and may not be running to the fitness I was before, but I've learned so much since that anyway.
yeah, yeah, and that's so true. And finding the gratitudes, and I know that's something that you do a lot is looking for the gratitude in the situations. And I think that's what can keep us from going
Mhm.
down into those spirals, or see kind of getting into the pity of why me or things,
Mhm.
is seeing the good in the situation. And I love that you do that. I love seeing the posts that you have, even because you're always talking about those things and what you're grateful for, or that you had a great walk. And I love that. I kind of feel like, I wonder if your podcast too, do you think that's helped you along the way with you being able to connect with other runners and share their stories? Do you think that's been helping you in a way of coping as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you know I've been so fortunate to just like we said earlier, fall into it and be immersed in this wonderful community online. So especially during lockdown, I'm not getting my run talk chat fix from club. Like that was my I used to love that on a Wednesday night, being able to catch up with everyone and just talk, talk, talk. It was quite a joke that I'd be right at the back of any group on a Wednesday night because for me that was my easy run. I didn't care about pace. I didn't look at my watch. I was there to talk and to chat and to socialize. So not having that during lockdown, um, I'm so lucky that I've got this community online, and that is either through Instagram or through the podcast and everyone I meet. Especially as I live alone, so being in lockdown and not being able to see family and friends, I mean, I'm fortunate I get to go to work, so very lucky for that as well. So I do get some social interaction at work. But had I not been going to work and not been immersed in that community, I would be really struggling. And I do think of those who are or have been at home since the beginning, and who live alone because it can't be easy. And for me, um, Absolutely, the podcast and everyone I've met through it, the inspiration they give me continuously, and just hearing their stories, and who they know, and they put me in touch with other people, and it's just like opening doors to all these different people and sometimes opportunities as well. Um, but having received so many messages online from other people who are grateful for the podcast, or who tag me in their posts saying, "Oh, I've been for a 10-mile run, 40-mile run." I'm literally living vicariously through everyone's long runs because I can't do it myself. So when I see someone going on a long run and they're like, "I've been listening to Not Another Runner," I'm like, "Yay, I've been on a long run today," even though I wasn't there myself. I literally feel like, oh, I get that buzz. I've been on a long run.
I love
But
it.
seeing other people and their messages, and so many messages of like of thanks for being able to listen to the content is just a massive motivating factor, because I feel like we can all just be one big community, and the more we share that support to one another and just being kind to each other, um, just fuels me even more to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, community is huge. Without
Massive.
community, we would suffer, and especially
Yeah.
mental health. Mental health would suffer without the community. So that's
Yeah.
really important.
Hmm.
I love that. Now, I am curious. It sounded like you might have a half in mind for the fall winter time frame. What are your? Do you have any goals coming up as far as maybe your main goal is to get back into
Yes.
the running first, but do you aspire to any other things coming up here?
So for girls, do you know what? That's really weird. I feel like a little bit like your psychic. Where did you hear about this half?
I read about it. I think it was in the VB Nation.
Oh yes, yeah. I was thinking then, like how, and I was thinking because that podcast that because I've recorded another podcast this week with someone else for theirs, and I was thinking that's not aired yet. Yeah, okay. Do you know what? I was thinking this the other day. When I got to my 5 miles a few weeks ago, and God, that was such a great feeling. Do you know what's really great though? I've got to say this. I A long time ago, when I was running and running well, I think even when I was, maybe when I was injured, but I remember thinking back, like I would listen to music and to the playlist I'd listened to when I first started running, and when you first discover it and you just increase the distance and it feels amazing and it's all this whole new world. And I remember thinking like a nostalgic feeling, like, oh, I'll never get that back again. Like those days, they're not the same. And now, since being injured and then working my way back up, I thought the other day, actually, I can get that back again because I'm working from the beginning again. So with regards to goals, having done those 5 miles, I did think to myself it would be great if I could get back up to 13 miles. I did have a race planned actually, and I've forgotten all about this. If that was to be honest though, I've kind of said to myself, with regards to our situation now, I haven't really thought about this year with regards to events and races. So more in my head, I'm thinking if I could do 13.1 miles in the autumn, I'd be ecstatic. Fingers crossed I can get there. Um, but I'll be sensible. So if I can't, I can't. But it would be great. And I did think, oh, I could do one on, I think it's the last weekend of September, and it would be a year since I'll have done 13 miles. So if I wake up to that, it'll be quite a memorable moment then, because I remember I wasn't in a good place in September last year, and to get to that start line was so hard. Like everything was against me, and there was torrential rain, there was wind. It Oh, I just really did not want to go, but because I'd said to a friend that we would both do it, I couldn't let her down, so I did, and I'm so glad I did. But yeah, I wasn't in a good place.
Yeah, yeah. No, that would be a really cool
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
year anniversary type thing, and
Yeah.
being able to say, "Yep, I can do it. I can overcome this." And do you have the marathon itch still? Do you
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, I definitely do. It's way back in my head. It's not. It's definitely not the forefront because of this. I don't even know if I can call it injury, but because of this whole neck thing and the struggle with that, it's definitely not a priority. But I think in a way, one thing I'll think is that this has been quite a blessing, because if I was running as I was, I think I'd find it even more difficult to manage the podcast and everything that I do. Um, I've got very limited time anyway, but I am very conscious of how much time I do use spend at the laptop and at my phone, because that could probably just continue to exacerbate the whole neck situation. But yeah, with regards to marathon, definitely another day. Just haven't thought about it too much. It's there though.
Yeah, somewhere
Somewhere.
think about
Yeah.
it time, and if that happens, it'll be fun. It'll be a fun experience to see what you can do this next time around, because I'm sure that it would be a much better experience. But I always tell, as I train for races, I always say, "Oh, this is gonna be my last marathon. I'm never doing another one." And then you get doing it, and then you go, "Shoot, I think I could do better."
Yes.
It's just an addiction. It just becomes an addiction. But so my last question for you is just if you could give one piece of advice to someone who has a dream but is either scared to go after it or just doesn't know how it will all come together, what would that advice be that you would give?
Oh. I definitely did not prepare for this one, so this is going to be what comes to my head. Okay, my advice. Yeah. Oh, this is easy. Yeah. Okay. So it would be absolutely have your purpose, your why. So having your why is just essential for everything. So um, I think it's hard without putting it into context, but whatever struggle or obstacle that may come your way, whatever you want in life or something that you want to aspire to, having that big purpose there will keep you fighting through anything. And I think sometimes that's really hard if you're going through a really, really big life event or a really big struggle, as I did. I didn't have a why at all. I didn't have a purpose, and I had some really dark days. So trying to overcome that is difficult. So saying have your why is doesn't always fit in that aspect. So in which case I would say just keep putting one foot in front of the other, like just one step at a time. And it doesn't matter how small that may be. Some days I would applaud myself for getting in the shower because I was so unwell. So just one step at a time, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you'll be so glad that you kept going.
Yeah, I love that. The small victories, just the little
Yes.
things. I love
Yeah.
it. So
Yes.
sometimes it's all we have, and just finding that little win, and it'll
Yeah.
for that one next step. So
Yeah. Even if it's you washed your hair, like yes,
yeah,
you're winning.
yes, absolutely. So that's so cool. And you have another anniversary coming up, and I think it's in June. So when this
Yeah.
podcast launches, or when this episode launches, it'll be right around that time with
Mhm.
you being a year into your podcast. And
Yeah.
is it June?
Yeah. I think it was 22nd of June, if I remember rightly,
Okay.
when I looked. Yes, so very soon.
Super awesome, which is one of the reasons I wanted you on right now too, because I wanted to congratulate you on your 1 year, because a lot of people don't make it past recording 5 to 8 episodes. So getting past that little hunch, that little win,
Yeah.
keep going, and it becomes a natural occurring thing that you probably can't think of not doing anymore. But
No.
share just a little bit about your podcast, about Not Another Runner, and where our audience can find you so they can connect with you too.
So the Not Another Runner podcast is aimed to motivate and inspire others just to get up and get going, despite level of ability, level of fitness. It doesn't matter where you're starting, where you're going, or where you've been. It doesn't matter if you're starting again like me. It is just to get up, get going, have fun, and to feel good. So I do hope to motivate the everyday runner with everyday runners' stories, motivational and inspirational, and stories of transformation. And you can find the podcast on most podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Anchor FM, iTunes, and it's literally Not Another Runner. And that's where you can find me over on Instagram as well, is Not Another Runner, all as one.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you taking this time out, Nat. I had a great time chatting with you again. We will definitely have to connect and keep connected, and I'm excited to hear when you hit past that 5 mile mark too, and as you keep embarking on the journey of getting back into the running.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to you being able to run well as well with no ankle mishaps and annoyances.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you very much for having me.
yes, absolutely. We will talk again soon, Nat.
Yes, cheers.
What do you think? Wasn't that so, so good? I'm glad Natalie could be with us today to share some of her lowest moments and how she dug herself out of them and created a life of positive for herself. I want you to know that you are not alone in the feelings you have. We all experience lows, and it's okay to stay there a while and feel those feelings. But at some point, it's what we do with them that makes all the difference. Life will never be easy. Bumps will come, walls will emerge, giants will surface. Use those trials and turn them into your victory story. I believe in you. If you liked today's interview, make sure to light up that subscribe button, share this video with others, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Dream huge, and remember, you are a winner. Just run your race.